English Listening Podcast. TOEIC 700 points. Chapter 1, Business Communication. In today's globalized business environment, effective communication is essential for professional success. Companies increasingly rely on digital platforms to facilitate internal and external communications. Email remains the predominant method for formal business correspondence, though messaging applications have gained popularity for quick exchanges among team members. When composing business emails, professionals should maintain a clear and concise writing style, addressing the main points without unnecessary elaboration. Subject lines should accurately reflect the content and urgency of the message. Additionally, proper email etiquette dictates that responses should be timely, usually within 24 hours of receipt. Many organizations have established communication protocols that specify which channels should be used for different types of information sharing. For instance, strategic decisions might require formal documentation, while operational updates can be shared through team meetings or collaborative platforms. Professionals who master multiple communication channels demonstrate greater adaptability in diverse workplace situations. Moreover, intercultural communication competence has become increasingly valuable as companies expand their international operations. This includes awareness of cultural differences in communication styles, such as directness versus indirectness, and varying attitudes toward hierarchy and formality. Presentations constitute another critical aspect of business communication that professionals must master. Effective presenters understand their audience and tailor content accordingly, avoiding industry jargon when addressing non-specialists. Visual aids should enhance rather than replace the speaker's message, with graphics that clarify complex information without creating distraction. Preparation remains fundamental to presentation success, including rehearsal of key points and anticipation of potential questions. Many professionals now deliver presentations virtually, requiring additional considerations regarding technology, engagement techniques, and visual presence on camera. Nonverbal communication significantly impacts how messages are received in both in-person and virtual settings. Body language, facial expressions, and vocal tone can either reinforce or contradict verbal content. Active listening skills complement speaking abilities in creating effective two-way communication. This involves maintaining focus, asking clarifying questions, and providing appropriate feedback to demonstrate understanding. Written reports serve distinct communication purposes in business contexts, generally requiring more comprehensive information and formal structure than emails or presentations. Executive summaries help busy professionals quickly grasp essential points before deciding whether to read detailed content. Technical writing for business purposes demands precision and clarity, particularly when explaining complex processes or systems to various stakeholders. Translation services have become increasingly important as businesses operate across language boundaries, though cultural nuances sometimes present challenges beyond literal translation. Business negotiation requires specialized communication strategies that balance advocating for specific interests with finding mutually acceptable solutions. Skilled negotiators prepare thoroughly by identifying objectives, alternatives, and potential concessions before entering discussions. They also attempt to understand counterparts' priorities and constraints to identify potential common ground. Conflict resolution in workplace settings involves addressing disagreements constructively before they escalate into more serious problems affecting productivity and morale. Effective approaches acknowledge different perspectives while focusing on shared goals and objective criteria for solutions. Communication during organizational change plays crucial roles in managing transitions and maintaining employee engagement. Transparency about rationales for change, expected impacts, and implementation timelines helps reduce uncertainty and resistance. Customer communication strategies vary across industries, but generally emphasize responsiveness, clarity, and consistency, regardless of which channel customers choose. Increasingly, businesses employ customer relationship management systems to track interactions and ensure coordinated communication across touchpoints. Crisis communication planning prepares organizations to respond effectively when unexpected situations threaten operations or reputation. These plans typically designate spokespersons, establish approval processes for public statements, and identify key stakeholder groups requiring specialized messages. Internal communication within organizations serves multiple purposes, including information sharing, coordination of activities, reinforcement of organizational culture, and employee engagement. Effective internal communication recognizes different information needs across organizational levels and functions. Brand communication extends beyond marketing to encompass all interactions that shape stakeholder perceptions of an organization. Consistency across communication channels helps reinforce brand identity and values. Data visualization techniques have become increasingly important for communicating complex information effectively in business contexts. Well-designed charts, graphs, and infographics enable quick comprehension of trends and relationships that might be difficult to grasp from raw numbers. Chapter 2: Environmental Sustainability. Environmental sustainability has become a critical concern for governments, businesses, and individuals worldwide. Climate change presents significant challenges that require coordinated global action. Scientists have documented rising global temperatures, changing precipitation patterns, and more frequent extreme weather events. These changes impact agriculture, water resources, and human health. In response, many countries have committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions through international agreements. The transition to renewable energy sources constitutes a fundamental aspect of sustainability efforts. Solar, wind, and hydroelectric power offer alternatives to fossil fuels, though implementation challenges remain. Energy efficiency measures in buildings and transportation systems also contribute significantly to emissions reduction. Furthermore, sustainable resource management practices help preserve biodiversity and ecosystem services. Conservation initiatives aim to protect endangered species and maintain natural habitats. Sustainable agriculture methods focus on reducing chemical inputs while maintaining productivity. Many consumers now consider environmental impact when making purchasing decisions, creating market incentives for sustainable practices. Corporate sustainability programs increasingly incorporate environmental metrics into business performance evaluations. Despite progress, achieving environmental sustainability requires continued innovation, policy development, and behavioral changes across society. The concept of circular economy has gained prominence as an alternative to traditional linear economic models of production and consumption. Rather than following a take-make-dispose approach, circular systems emphasize resource recovery, product longevity, and waste elimination. Manufacturing companies increasingly incorporate design for disassembly principles, enabling easier recycling and refurbishment of products at the end of their useful life. Extended producer responsibility policies place greater obligation on manufacturers to manage products throughout their entire life cycle, including disposal or recycling phases. Plastic pollution presents particular environmental challenges due to its persistence in natural environments and widespread distribution in marine ecosystems. Microplastics have been detected in remote locations and numerous species, raising concerns about potential health impacts throughout food chains. Water scarcity affects growing regions of the world, exacerbated by climate change, population growth, and inefficient usage patterns. Innovative water conservation technologies include advanced irrigation systems, water recycling facilities, and consumption monitoring tools. Green building standards provide frameworks for reducing environmental impacts of construction and building operations through improved energy efficiency, sustainable material selection, and resource conservation measures. Carbon pricing mechanisms attempt to incorporate environmental costs into economic decision-making, either through taxation or cap-and-trade systems. Environmental justice concerns highlight the uneven distribution of environmental benefits and burdens across different communities and social groups. Nature-based solutions leverage ecosystem services to address environmental challenges while providing additional social and economic benefits. These approaches include urban forestry, wetland restoration, and agricultural practices that enhance natural carbon sequestration. Chapter 3: Technology Innovation. Technological innovation continues to transform industries and daily life at an unprecedented pace. Artificial intelligence applications have expanded dramatically across sectors including healthcare, finance, and manufacturing. Machine learning algorithms enable computers to recognize patterns and make decisions based on vast amounts of data. In healthcare, AI systems assist with diagnostic procedures and treatment recommendations, potentially improving patient outcomes. Similarly, automation technologies are changing workplace dynamics by handling routine tasks and increasing operational efficiency. This shift necessitates workforce adaptation through continuous learning and skill development. The Internet of Things connects everyday objects to networks, creating smart environments that respond to human activities and preferences. From homes to entire cities, interconnected devices collect and share data to optimize resource use and enhance convenience. Cybersecurity concerns have grown alongside technological adoption, as interconnected systems face increasingly sophisticated threats. Data privacy regulations attempt to balance innovation with individual rights regarding personal information. Emerging technologies like blockchain offer new approaches to security and verification without centralized control. Meanwhile, quantum computing research promises computational capabilities far beyond current limitations, potentially revolutionizing fields from cryptography to materials science. As technology continues advancing, ethical considerations about its development and deployment become increasingly important for society. Robotics technology has advanced beyond industrial applications into service sectors, healthcare, and consumer products. Collaborative robots designed to work alongside humans feature enhanced safety mechanisms and intuitive programming interfaces. Autonomous vehicles represent a convergence of multiple technologies, including computer vision, sensor arrays, and advanced control systems. Despite technical progress, regulatory frameworks and public acceptance present significant implementation challenges for self-driving transportation. Biotechnology innovations continue expanding possibilities in medicine, agriculture, and materials science through genetic engineering and synthetic biology approaches. Gene editing technologies like CRISPR offer unprecedented precision in modifying genetic material, raising both scientific and ethical questions about appropriate applications. Augmented reality overlays digital information onto physical environments, while virtual reality creates immersive digital experiences separated from physical surroundings. Both technologies find applications in training, entertainment, design, and increasingly in remote collaboration scenarios. Cloud computing has transformed information technology infrastructure by providing scalable resources without significant upfront investment. Edge computing complements cloud services by processing data closer to its source, reducing latency for time-sensitive applications. Digital platforms have created new business models based on connecting service providers with customers through technology interfaces. These platforms often disrupt traditional industry structures while raising questions about worker classification and market concentration. Additive manufacturing, commonly known as 3D printing, enables production of complex components with minimal material waste. The technology continues advancing from prototyping applications toward end-use production in sectors including aerospace, medical devices, and consumer products. Telecommunications infrastructure continues evolving with 5G networks providing increased bandwidth and reduced latency for mobile applications. These networks enable new use cases, including enhanced remote operations and more sophisticated Internet of Things implementations. Chapter 4: Global Economics. The global economic landscape has undergone significant transformations in recent decades, characterized by increasing interconnectedness and complexity. International trade relationships shape national economic policies and business strategies across continents. Supply chains often span multiple countries, creating both opportunities and vulnerabilities for participating economies. Economic indicators such as gross domestic product, inflation rates, and employment statistics provide insights into national economic performance. However, these metrics sometimes fail to capture important aspects of economic well-being, like income distribution and quality of life. Financial markets react quickly to economic data, policy changes, and geopolitical developments, sometimes with cascading effects across regions. Investment patterns reflect both economic fundamentals and investor sentiment, which can change rapidly based on new information. Developing economies face unique challenges in balancing growth objectives with sustainability concerns and social development goals. Infrastructure investment often serves as a foundation for economic expansion, though financing such projects remains challenging in resource-constrained environments. Economic policy decisions typically involve trade-offs between short-term stability and long-term growth potential. Central banks adjust monetary policies to manage inflation and support employment, while governments implement fiscal measures to address economic cycles and structural issues. International economic organizations facilitate cooperation on shared challenges like trade disputes and financial system stability. Despite globalization, significant economic disparities persist both between and within countries, prompting ongoing debate about economic models and priorities. Exchange rate fluctuations significantly impact international trade competitiveness and investment flows between countries. Flexible exchange rate systems allow currency values to adjust based on market conditions, while managed systems involve varying degrees of government intervention. Commodity price volatility affects economies differently depending on whether they primarily export or import raw materials. Countries with resource-dependent economies often implement stabilization funds or diversification strategies to manage this volatility. Foreign direct investment provides capital, technology, and expertise to recipient countries while offering market access and potential returns to investors. However, concerns sometimes arise regarding national sovereignty, labor conditions, and environmental impacts of foreign investment. Regional trade agreements establish preferential trading terms among participating countries, potentially increasing commerce while sometimes diverting trade from non-participating nations. Economic sanctions represent policy tools that use economic pressure to influence political decisions or behaviors in targeted countries. The effectiveness of sanctions depends on multiple factors, including implementation coordination and the target country's economic resilience. Digital transformation of economies creates opportunities for new business models and increased productivity, though benefits have not been evenly distributed across sectors or populations. Labor market dynamics continue evolving as automation affects different occupations and new forms of work arrangement emerge. Skills mismatches between worker capabilities and employer requirements persist in many economies despite overall educational attainment increases. Sovereign debt management presents particular challenges during economic downturns when revenue decreases while spending pressures often increase. Informal economic activity comprises a significant portion of many economies, particularly in developing regions, creating both opportunities for livelihood and challenges for governance. Public-private partnerships offer mechanisms for combining government oversight with private sector efficiency in economic development projects, though effective implementation requires careful design and monitoring. International remittances from migrant workers provide substantial financial flows to many developing countries, sometimes exceeding official development assistance or foreign direct investment. Chapter 5: Urban Development. Urban development presents complex challenges as cities worldwide continue experiencing population growth and demographic shifts. Metropolitan areas serve as centers of economic activity, cultural exchange, and technological innovation. Urban planning approaches have evolved to address sustainability concerns while accommodating growing populations. Many cities implement smart city technologies to improve service delivery and resource efficiency. Transportation systems represent a critical component of urban infrastructure, affecting mobility, economic opportunity, and environmental quality. Public transit networks reduce congestion and emissions when properly designed and maintained. However, transportation infrastructure requires substantial investment and long-term planning horizons. Housing affordability remains a significant challenge in rapidly growing urban areas, affecting social cohesion and economic opportunity. Various policy approaches attempt to balance development incentives with affordable housing requirements. Urban green spaces provide environmental benefits, including temperature moderation, air quality improvement, and stormwater management. These areas also offer recreational opportunities and contribute to residents' physical and mental well-being. Many cities now incorporate resilience planning into development strategies, preparing for challenges such as natural disasters and climate change impacts. Urban renewal projects aim to revitalize declining areas while avoiding displacement of existing communities. Successful urban development increasingly depends on stakeholder engagement processes that incorporate diverse perspectives and priorities. As urbanization continues globally, sharing best practices across different contexts becomes increasingly valuable for addressing common challenges. The concept of transit-oriented development has gained prominence as an approach that concentrates residential and commercial development around public transportation hubs. This model can reduce automobile dependence while creating vibrant mixed-use neighborhoods with diverse housing options. Urban density presents both opportunities and challenges for city planners and residents. Higher density development can support efficient public services and vibrant street life, while potentially creating concerns regarding congestion and privacy. Suburban areas surrounding major cities continue evolving beyond traditional residential enclaves to incorporate employment centers, cultural amenities, and diverse housing types. The relationship between urban cores and surrounding regions requires coordinated planning approaches that recognize economic and transportation interdependencies. Informal settlements in many developing world cities present particular urban development challenges regarding infrastructure provision, legal recognition, and integration with formal urban systems. Upgrading programs aim to improve living conditions while preserving community connections and affordable housing options. Historic preservation within urban contexts balances conservation of cultural heritage with accommodation of changing needs and economic development objectives. Adaptive reuse of historic structures provides opportunities to maintain architectural character while serving contemporary functions. Waterfront redevelopment has transformed former industrial areas in many cities into mixed-use districts that reconnect urban populations with water resources. These projects often incorporate flood mitigation measures alongside recreational and commercial elements. Public space design significantly influences urban social dynamics and community interaction patterns. Successful public spaces accommodate diverse users and activities while providing comfort and safety. Urban agriculture initiatives convert vacant land to productive use while potentially improving food access and creating community gathering places. Zoning regulations and building codes shape urban form through requirements regarding land use, density, building characteristics, and environmental performance. Reform efforts often seek to increase flexibility while maintaining protection of public interests. Digital infrastructure has become essential to urban functionality, creating requirements for connectivity alongside traditional physical infrastructure systems. Chapter 6: Healthcare Systems. Healthcare systems worldwide face evolving challenges related to demographic changes, technological advancement, and resource constraints. Population aging in many countries increases demand for chronic disease management and long-term care services. Healthcare financing approaches vary significantly, from predominantly public systems to market-oriented models with varying levels of government involvement. Each approach presents distinct advantages and limitations regarding access, cost control, and quality. Preventive healthcare measures often provide cost-effective alternatives to treating advanced conditions, though implementation requires sustained commitment and investment. Digital health technologies enable remote monitoring, telehealth consultations, and improved information sharing among providers. Electronic health records facilitate coordination among healthcare providers while raising important questions about data security and privacy. Healthcare workforce development remains essential for maintaining quality care, particularly in underserved areas facing provider shortages. Medical education systems must adapt to changing knowledge requirements and practice environments. Pharmaceutical innovation continues delivering new treatment options, sometimes at costs that strain healthcare budgets and raise questions about equitable access. Evidence-based medicine emphasizes clinical decisions guided by research findings rather than tradition or individual observation alone. Quality measurement frameworks assess healthcare performance across dimensions including safety, effectiveness, and patient-centeredness. Mental health services have gained recognition as essential components of comprehensive healthcare systems. Despite significant advances, healthcare disparities persist based on geographic location, socioeconomic status, and other factors, presenting ongoing challenges for policymakers and healthcare leaders. Primary care services provide first-contact healthcare addressing common conditions while coordinating specialized care when necessary. Strong primary care systems often correlate with better population health outcomes and more efficient resource utilization. Hospital systems continue evolving from acute care facilities toward integrated health networks providing diverse services across care settings. Many hospitals implement quality improvement methodologies derived from manufacturing industries to enhance safety and effectiveness. Public health infrastructure focuses on population-level health protection and promotion through disease surveillance, health education, and environmental health measures. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted both strengths and vulnerabilities in public health systems worldwide. Health insurance mechanisms distribute financial risk across populations while creating various incentive structures for providers and patients. Coverage gaps affect healthcare access and financial security for uninsured and underinsured populations. Long-term care services address needs of individuals with chronic conditions or disabilities requiring ongoing assistance. Demographic trends indicate growing demand for these services in many regions. Maternal and child health programs target crucial developmental periods with preventive services and early interventions. These programs often demonstrate favorable cost-benefit ratios through lifelong health impacts. Complementary and alternative medicine practices continue gaining acceptance within conventional healthcare systems, though evidence standards sometimes create integration challenges. Patient engagement approaches recognize the importance of individual participation in healthcare decisions and self-management activities. Shared decision-making models incorporate patient values alongside clinical evidence. Health literacy affects individuals' ability to navigate healthcare systems and make informed decisions about their care. Educational interventions address health literacy gaps at individual and community levels. Healthcare innovation ecosystems connect research institutions, healthcare providers, technology companies, and funding sources to accelerate development and implementation of promising solutions. Palliative care services focus on quality of life for patients with serious illnesses through symptom management and psychosocial support. Integration of these approaches across healthcare settings has improved patient experiences and sometimes reduced unnecessary interventions. Chapter 7: Education Transformation. Education systems worldwide are undergoing significant transformation in response to changing economic demands and technological capabilities. Traditional educational models increasingly incorporate digital learning tools and personalized approaches. Online learning platforms offer flexible access to educational content, though questions remain about engagement and effectiveness compared to in-person instruction. Educational assessment methods continue evolving beyond standardized testing to incorporate project-based evaluations and competency demonstrations. Critical thinking, problem-solving, and creativity receive greater emphasis as automation changes workplace requirements. Many educational institutions now focus on developing transferable skills that remain valuable across different career paths and through technological changes. Lifelong learning has become increasingly important as career transitions become more common and knowledge requirements evolve rapidly. Continuing education programs serve professionals seeking to update skills or change career directions. International education exchanges facilitate cultural understanding while providing diverse perspectives on academic subjects. Educational technology investments have accelerated, enabling adaptive learning systems that respond to individual student progress and learning styles. Despite technological advances, educator expertise remains central to effective learning environments, though teaching roles continue evolving. Educational equity concerns persist regarding access to quality learning opportunities across socioeconomic groups and geographic regions. Educational research provides insights into effective practices, though implementation across diverse contexts presents significant challenges. Collaboration between educational institutions and employers helps align curriculum development with workforce needs while maintaining broader educational objectives. Early childhood education has gained recognition for its fundamental role in cognitive development and later academic success. Quality early learning experiences establish foundations for knowledge acquisition and social-emotional development. Teacher preparation programs face pressure to incorporate emerging instructional approaches while maintaining core pedagogical principles. Ongoing professional development supports educators in adapting practices to changing student needs and educational contexts. Curriculum design processes attempt to balance knowledge acquisition with skill development and adaptability for future learning requirements. National and regional standards provide frameworks for curriculum development while sometimes creating tensions regarding local educational control. Special education services address diverse learning needs through individualized approaches and accommodations. Inclusive education models aim to integrate students with various abilities in mainstream educational settings while providing appropriate support. Higher education institutions navigate competing priorities including research advancement, workforce preparation, and broader intellectual development. University governance structures continue evolving to address changing funding models and stakeholder expectations. Vocational and technical education programs provide specialized preparation for specific career paths, often incorporating workplace-based learning experiences. These programs have gained renewed attention as skilled technical workers remain in demand despite automation trends. Educational financing mechanisms significantly impact institutional priorities and student access. Tuition models, government funding approaches, and scholarship programs create different incentive structures and opportunity distributions. Distance education has expanded beyond traditional correspondence courses to incorporate synchronous instruction and interactive learning experiences. This expansion increases educational access for geographically isolated students and those with scheduling constraints. Educational leadership significantly influences institutional effectiveness through strategic direction, resource allocation, and organizational culture development. Distributed leadership models recognize contributions from various organizational levels rather than concentrating decision authority. Education policy development involves complex interactions among governmental bodies, educational institutions, professional organizations, and community stakeholders. Implementation challenges often arise from differences between policy intentions and contextual realities in diverse educational settings. Chapter 8: International Relations. International relations encompass complex interactions among nations, international organizations, and non-state actors across political, economic, and cultural dimensions. Diplomatic relations provide structured channels for communication and negotiation between governments on matters of mutual interest. International organizations facilitate multilateral cooperation on transnational challenges like climate change, public health emergencies, and economic stability. These institutions establish frameworks for collective action while respecting national sovereignty considerations. Regional integration efforts create economic and political communities with varying levels of policy coordination and shared governance. Trade agreements establish rules for cross-border commerce, though negotiations often involve difficult compromises between competing national interests. Security alliances provide collective defense arrangements that influence military planning and international stability. However, changing geopolitical conditions sometimes create tensions within established alliance structures. International law provides principles and processes for addressing disputes between states, though enforcement mechanisms remain limited compared to domestic legal systems. Cultural diplomacy and exchange programs build mutual understanding that can facilitate cooperation on more formal diplomatic issues. Humanitarian interventions address extreme situations like natural disasters or conflict-related crises, raising complex questions about sovereignty and responsibility. Migration patterns influence international relations as countries negotiate responsibilities regarding refugee protection and immigration policies. International development assistance aims to support economic and social progress in lower-income countries, though approaches and priorities continue evolving. Digital technologies have transformed international communication while creating new challenges regarding information security and sovereignty. As global interconnection deepens, effective international relations increasingly require understanding complex systems and interdependencies. The United Nations system provides institutional frameworks for international cooperation across security, development, humanitarian, and human rights dimensions. UN peacekeeping operations deploy military and civilian personnel to conflict zones with mandates ranging from observation to civilian protection. The Security Council holds primary responsibility for maintaining international peace and security, though its composition and veto structure reflect post-World War II power arrangements. International dispute resolution mechanisms include judicial bodies like the International Court of Justice and arbitration processes for specific issue areas. Compliance with rulings depends largely on state consent and diplomatic pressure rather than enforcement capabilities. Nuclear nonproliferation efforts attempt to prevent weapons spread while managing existing arsenals through inspection regimes and arms control agreements. Disarmament and arms control negotiations address various weapons categories with objectives including stability enhancement and humanitarian protection. Transnational terrorism presents security challenges that cross traditional boundaries, requiring intelligence sharing and coordinated law enforcement responses. Counterterrorism approaches balanced security imperatives with civil liberties and rule of law considerations. Environmental diplomacy addresses shared ecological systems and resources that transcend national boundaries. International environmental agreements establish commitments regarding emissions reduction, biodiversity protection, and resource management, though implementation remains challenging. Global health governance coordinates responses to disease outbreaks and promotes health systems strengthening worldwide. The World Health Organization provides technical guidance while facing political and resource constraints. Economic sanctions employ trade and financial restrictions as policy tools to influence state behavior, though humanitarian impacts and effectiveness remain subjects of debate. Public diplomacy efforts communicate directly with foreign populations to shape perceptions and build favorable international environments for policy initiatives. Digital diplomacy utilizes online platforms for diplomatic communication, though these channels present both opportunities and vulnerabilities. International negotiation processes involve complex interplay between technical expertise, political considerations, and interpersonal dynamics. Diplomatic protocol establishes formalities that facilitate interaction while signaling respect for sovereignty and status considerations. Chapter 9: Cultural Heritage Preservation. Cultural heritage preservation efforts protect tangible and intangible cultural expressions for future generations while providing contemporary social and economic benefits. Historical buildings and archaeological sites face threats from development pressures, environmental factors, and sometimes deliberate destruction. Conservation techniques balance authenticity preservation with practical considerations like safety, accessibility, and sustainable use. Digital documentation technologies create detailed records of cultural heritage, providing research resources and backup information should physical sites face damage. Intangible cultural heritage, including traditional knowledge, performing arts, and cultural practices, requires different preservation approaches than physical artifacts. Community involvement in preservation planning helps ensure cultural significance receives appropriate recognition in conservation decisions. Cultural tourism generates resources for preservation while raising awareness about heritage significance. However, tourist activities must be managed carefully to prevent degradation of the very sites visitors come to experience. Museum collections preserve cultural artifacts while making them accessible for education and appreciation. Evolving museum practices address questions about representation, interpretation, and sometimes repatriation of cultural items. International conventions establish principles for cultural heritage protection, though implementation depends largely on national legislation and local commitment. Indigenous cultural heritage presents particular considerations regarding traditional ownership concepts and cultural protocols. Adaptive reuse of historic structures provides sustainable preservation solutions that maintain cultural significance while accommodating contemporary needs. Cultural landscapes recognize the interconnection between natural environments and human cultural practices. As societies change, cultural heritage preservation approaches continue evolving to reflect broadening conceptions of heritage value and significance. Chapter 10: Scientific Research. Scientific research advances knowledge through systematic investigation across disciplines from physics to psychology. The scientific method provides a framework for developing hypotheses, designing experiments, and analyzing results to build reliable knowledge. Research funding comes from diverse sources including government agencies, private foundations, and commercial enterprises, each with different priorities and expectations. Basic research explores fundamental questions without immediate practical applications, while applied research addresses specific problems or opportunities. However, this distinction often blurs as discoveries move from theoretical understanding toward practical implementation. Collaborative research increasingly spans institutions and national boundaries, combining diverse expertise and resources. Large-scale scientific facilities like particle accelerators and genome sequencing centers enable research beyond the capabilities of individual laboratories. Research ethics frameworks address questions regarding participant protection, data integrity, and responsible innovation. Scientific publication processes facilitate knowledge sharing while providing quality control through peer review. However, growing interest in open science practices is changing traditional publication models. Interdisciplinary research approaches complex problems by integrating perspectives and methodologies from multiple fields. Data management practices have gained importance as research increasingly generates and analyzes massive datasets. Scientific communication to non-specialist audiences helps build public understanding of research significance and implications. Translational research bridges the gap between laboratory discoveries and practical applications in fields like medicine and engineering. Scientific consensus emerges gradually through evidence accumulation and critical analysis rather than individual studies. Despite methodological rigor, scientific knowledge remains provisional and subject to refinement through ongoing research and discovery. Experimental design principles help researchers control variables and minimize bias when testing hypotheses. Randomization, blinding, and appropriate control groups increase confidence in causal relationships between variables. Statistical analysis provides tools for evaluating evidence strength and determining whether observed differences likely represent meaningful patterns rather than random variation. Sample size calculations help ensure sufficient statistical power for detecting effects when they exist. Reproducibility of research findings has received increased attention following identification of replication challenges across scientific fields. Various initiatives address contributing factors including publication bias, analytical flexibility, and inadequate methodological documentation. Computer modeling and simulation enable study of complex systems that resist traditional experimental approaches due to scale, ethical constraints, or practical limitations. These methodological approaches require careful validation against empirical data when possible. Laboratory techniques continue advancing through technological innovation, enabling measurements with increasing precision, sensitivity, and throughput. Standardization of procedures facilitates comparison across studies, while specialized methods address unique research questions. Field research examines phenomena in natural settings rather than controlled environments, providing ecological validity while presenting distinct methodological challenges. Research infrastructure includes physical facilities, equipment, specimens, and increasingly, digital resources and computational capabilities. Sustainable funding models for infrastructure maintenance present challenges distinct from project-based research support. Scientific career development involves progression through education, early career positions, and establishment as independent investigators. Mentorship plays crucial roles in transmitting both technical knowledge and professional norms within scientific communities. Research program development requires strategic planning regarding questions, methods, and resources while maintaining flexibility to pursue unexpected discoveries. Scientific review processes evaluate proposals and manuscripts based on methodological soundness, significance, and originality, though evaluation criteria vary across fields and funding sources. Science policy frameworks establish priorities and constraints for research activities at institutional, national, and international levels. These policies reflect both scientific considerations and broader societal values regarding appropriate research directions and methods. Knowledge transfer mechanisms connect research findings with potential applications in industry, healthcare, policy development, and other contexts. Effective transfer requires attention to both technical and social dimensions of innovation processes.